Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about Kamala Harris's NBC interview because the wheels are completely coming off of this campaign, and this is the perfect example of why. I don't believe I'm saying this, but more so than maybe even the Fox News interview, or even the one that she did initially with Tim Walz as her backup because she was scared to face the media, this one, she looks absolutely horrible in. Now, we're going to talk about it. We're going to break down the key answers. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And this is the final reminder. Tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be debating Joshua Eagle on whether or not libertarians should vote for Kamala Harris for president. You can register with the link at the top of the description, and right under it is a link to something called Civil, where you can watch it live tonight at 7 p.m. I really hope to see you guys there if you can make it, or at least watch via live stream. It's going to be fun.
For them, for so many voters, we know that a huge issue for them is the economy. Right. It's the cost of living. I've been on the campaign trail. I hear that in the field again and again. You look at some of the numbers on this, and our new NBC News poll shows that more voters think that the Biden administration policies have hurt them rather than helped them.
So right off the top, she ends up getting hit pretty damn hard with this question right here, which is the number one issue in the United States of America is the economy. And the overwhelming majority of people do not believe the Biden administration policies, which you are a part of the Biden administration, have actually helped them. They actually think that those policies have hurt them. So VP Harris, if you're running as an agent of change, how do you explain the fact that you're a part of the very administration that these people feel so negatively impacted by? And her answer to this is absolutely hilarious.
And I wonder, are the last 4 years an obstacle to you in this race?
Here's how I look at it. First of all, let me be very clear. Mine will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring my own experiences, my own ideas to it, and it has informed a number of my areas of focus, most of which are, on to your point, lowering costs. I am traveling the country. I am very clear. Cost of groceries still too high. The voters know it. I know it.
So one of the first things that she says, and this is a new line in the list of canned lines for Kamala Harris, which is, I will not be a continuation of the Biden presidency. And I absolutely love this for reasons beyond this particular race. First and foremost, if she loses, the attacks from the Biden camp are going to be vicious. They're going to be nasty. And we're finally going to find out exactly how Joseph R. Biden, despite winning the Democratic primary, was forced off the ballot and Kamala Harris was installed via that coup as the Democratic nominee. Secondly, she ends up going into the word salad. We're all sick and tired of the word salad, but she ends up landing at the end of this word salad on price gouging. I'm going to go after price gouging. Price gouging is the major factor in the too much for groceries and all that.
So part of my plan includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries, including the work I will do dealing with price gouging, something I dealt with when I was Attorney General, something I will deal with going forward.
When the fact of the matter is, the Federal Reserve has already released a study, again, this is under the Biden administration, that corporate greed and price gouging is not the cause of the higher prices that you're paying. So this is a completely empty promise. And again, it is rooted in like the original demagoguery tactic in world history, which is when inflation is up due to what the government is doing, due to their policies, due to their spending, they blame the people charging the prices so that the mobs can target them while they escape all consequences for their behavior. So Kamala immediately starts out with a lie, and I also like that her body language is completely thrown off base. These are the same questions that she has asked over and over and over again, and she still doesn't look comfortable answering them. Now, to be 100% fair to Kamala Harris, her biggest boom in terms of this campaign was in that 6 weeks leading up to the DNC where she did absolutely no interviews. And the reason for that is because polling showed generic Democrat overperformed every single individual candidate at that time. And she was essentially trying to be a no policy generic Democrat. But that bump is long over. And ever since then, even before the debate, she's been dropping in the polls. If you just look at the indicators, and as she's released policies, she's dropped in the polls. As she's changed up her policies, she's dropped in the polls. Now she's talking about how she's working with Liz Cheney, a thought leader in the Republican Party.
I was just with one of the leaders, and I think opinion leaders in the Republican Party, Liz Cheney.
And guess what? Unsurprisingly, she continues to drop in the polls. And by the way, this is absolutely crucial for you guys to understand. Dick Cheney was treated by the Democratic Party as Darth Vader, the absolute most evil guy running the Bush administration, a war criminal, a torturer, and all those things. And whatever you think about those allegations, whether you believe that a lot of them are true or not, that doesn't matter at this moment in time. What does matter is that that was all for show back then. They didn't actually hate them, and this goes to show you the inauthenticity of these Democrats. All of these people ended up loving Trump before he announced he was running for president as a Republican, and now that Dick Cheney is nowhere near somebody that's going to be in political office again, Kamala Harris is bending over backwards to praise him and his daughter as a thought leader, and crazy enough, she could end up in the cabinet if Kamala Harris wins. Remember, the Cheneys, war criminals of a generation, and all of that according to the Democrats, and by the way, a lot of Republicans, but because they're on her side, because they don't like the evil orange man, they're all of a sudden acceptable people. Something that even Jon Stewart called out when Tim Walz was doing an interview with him on The Daily Show.
The Cheney thing, do we really have to do that?
Look, it goes broader than that. Look, Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift.
No.
The shooting?
No.
Having the Cheneys on board?
Nah. You can't Dick Cheney or Taylor Swift. No.
We're a big tent.
What country did Taylor Swift get us to invade? No.
Yeah. No, don't you think, though, that, and I do this, I believe this,
yeah,
there is still a core group of folks out there, your point being, and not joke, the don't tread on me, the Reagan piece of this, the libertarian piece, but the constitutional piece,
yes,
there are a lot of people out there. I think Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney give permission to those folks who want to find a reason to do the right thing.
So if you're wondering why so many Americans think Kamala Harris and the Democrats are incredibly fake, that is exactly why. And by the way, the Republican Party has completely distanced themselves from Dick Cheney, from the neocons, because they know that the Bush administration was not good for the United States of America.
On the question of your beliefs, what you believe in, let me ask you this question very broadly speaking here.
Sure.
Do you believe that transgender Americans should have access to gender-affirming care in this country?
I believe we should follow the law.
So this right here is one of the major questions of this interview where Kamala failed the absolute most. And the reason why she failed is because she was asked point blank period, do you support what is often referred to as gender affirming care? As a broad question, by the way, this isn't talking about the specific examples for children or whatever. Kamala Harris could have taken this in whatever direction she wanted, but instead she pivots to we should follow the law. We should follow the law. But again, this was not specifically about transgender surgeries for illegal immigrants in prison, as Kamala Harris supported, by the way.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
This was about whether or not she supported it broadly, and she is so scared, so terrified of this issue, that she immediately pivots to, the evil orange man is spending all this money on these ads, and I'd really like him to stop, because those ads are absolutely devastating.
I mean, I think you're probably pointing to the fact that Donald Trump's campaign has spent tens of millions of dollars.
They're trying to define you on this.
Yes,
I'm asking you to define yourself, though. Just broadly speaking, what is your value? Do you believe they should have that access?
I believe that people, as the law states, even on this issue about federal law, that is a decision that doctors will make in terms of what is medically necessary. I'm not going to put myself in the position of a doctor, but let's also understand that Donald Trump is running tens of millions of dollars in ads to talk about two cases.
So let's be 100% clear about this. If Donald Trump was spending $10 to $20 million on an ad that was completely ineffective, Kamala Harris would not mention it. She would have no bones about saying that she supports the transes and all of that. But in this particular case, that ad is hitting her incredibly hard. So she keeps mentioning the money. She keeps mentioning how much of a problem she has with it, when the fact of the matter is, it's an effective ad. And by the way, Kamala Harris is grossly outraising representing President Trump in terms of her presidential campaign. So she has all this money. She could run more ads than the evil orange man. She's outspent him in multiple months of this election cycle.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
But this ad cuts to the heart. It makes Americans kind of understand how crazy that she is, and she is really put off by the fact that it's working so much, so she's trying to duck, dodge, weave around the topic, and I give credit to this NBC reporter for pressing her on this, for asking her to actually take a stance instead of saying, we're gonna follow federal law, please stop running the they-them ad, please stop doing that.
So let's not get distracted by the issues that, to your point from the introductory point you raised, people want to know that their president has a plan to make their life better. And that includes bringing down the cost of living. It includes dealing with prescription medication costs. It includes addressing the housing crisis and affordable housing crisis in our country. It includes supporting our small businesses, investing in American industries, and strengthening our economy.
I will move on, but I don't know that I heard a clear answer from you on the issue of gender-affirming care. It sounds like what you're saying is this should be something between trans Americans and their doctors. It feels like that's a long way from we see you and we love you, which was your message to trans Americans in May. What do you want the LGBTQ plus community to know as they're looking for a full-throated backing from you for trans Americans?
So I love this. Kamala gives a long-winded answer where she talks about small businesses, tax cuts for the rich, and all this different various stuff avoiding the topic. But the reporter actually asked her a follow-up, which is, hey, in May you said we see you, we love you. You were pretending like you were going to defend them no matter what, and they're asking for your support. So what do you value? What do you believe in? And Kamala Harris gives an answer which is very generic, very bland, and if you were to give this answer and you were on the right, they'd say that this is not specific enough and you're not addressing the issue at hand, and that's because you're trying to signal to your base that these people don't matter. But what's more important than that, and this is one of the benefits of watching the video version of these videos rather than listening on podcasts, but I'll do my best to describe it, is the way that she answers the question with her body language.
I believe that all people should be treated with dignity and respect. Period.
You see that? So she gives the generic answer. I believe that all Americans should be treated with dignity and respect. And then, thankfully, the camera cuts to a close-up, and you see her eyebrows, like, kind of blow up, and she's flashing rage at the reporter, basically saying, NBC, you're not going to get another interview with me if this is how you treat me in these interviews. Back off this question. It's all in the body language right there. What is the purpose of this pause? What is the purpose of her making that expression at her, giving her the little back off right there? And it's hilarious because Kamala Harris is obviously an incredibly weak candidate. She's afraid of the media, and even friendly media that thinks that they're probably teeing her up for a good answer to a question is getting some of her fury. And I'm sure there was a lot of yelling behind the scenes after this interview from her staff.
And should not be vilified for who they are. And should not be bullied for who they are. And that is a true statement for me my entire career. And that has not changed.
I mean, again, just listen to that. That is a true case that I'm making, and I've made for my entire career, and that has not changed. Also, she came out against bullying because, you know what? We really got to redo that whole thing where we're like, bullying is bad. Kamala, you were asked a very specific question. You, in the past, have said that the taxpayers should pay for gender transition surgeries for illegal aliens in federal custody. Do you still believe that? That is what's being run in the ads, and you can't answer the question. You're too much of a coward to answer the question. It's absolutely embarrassing. You tried saying that the evil orange man actually did it, but the fact of the matter is you're just weak on this issue. And by the way, this is the power of the changing culture, because a couple of years ago, she might have said, like she did, because it was more popular, that definitely 100% she supports it. But now she's backing off because this is one of the most effective ads that she's being hit with. And by the way, if you guys can't read between the lines, she's saying that the taxpayer definitely will will pay for this for illegal migrants in detention, but she doesn't want to outright say it.
You have made it clear that you believe this is a binary choice between you and Donald Trump. Those are the candidates on the ballot.
There's only
of course.
two choices.
Yes. And I know that Joe Biden is not on the ballot. I understand that. But the reason that you are at the top of the ticket is because he dropped out of this race. And so I want to ask you, and it was largely because of that debate performance back in June. You defended him in the days before and in the days after as you were campaigning for another 4 years for President Biden. Can you say that you were honest with the American people about what you saw in those moments with President Biden as you were with him again and again, repeatedly in that time?
Of course.
So I absolutely love this question. And again, I'm not a body language expert. Somebody get the behavioral panel on this to look at what she's doing, but I watch enough behavioral panel to know that when you dart off to the side looking up, you're reaching for a lie right there. So she was just asked point blank, were you honest to the American people when you said Joe Biden was amazing behind the scenes, the best Biden that you've ever seen? And she looks off to the side, comes back, and she's like, of course, let me crackle in my voice a little more as I say that. Absolutely embarrassing. And by the way, we all understand that Joe Biden had serious problems. The idea that he didn't, and that Kamala isn't the beneficiary of both the cover-up of those problems and the eventual ousting of Biden over those problems, is absurd to believe. But she's just pretending that she had no idea, and honestly, Biden just stepped out randomly and the nomination was handed to her when all of the reporting shows her as an active participant in the coup against Joe Biden so she could try to get the presidency out of this whole exchange.
Joe Biden is an extremely accomplished, experienced, and capable in every way that anyone would want if they're president.
You never saw anything like.
Again, just look at the body language. You guys who have been watching the video have been watching this interview the whole time. The whole time she's looking directly at the interviewer. Right now, looking off to the side. Her eyes are darting away. She's coming up with all these different various adjectives, and then she comes back and she's like, competent. And then immediately the eyes lose focus on the interviewer. This is somebody that's obviously lying. Everybody understands that she participated in the cover-up. And again, if she loses, they're going to be throwing Biden under the bus and his mental state, and the Biden team is going to be throwing her under the bus, and all these other Democrats are going to come out of the woodwork because they'll smell blood in the water and they'll be attacking both of them, and it will be glorious. I mean, just think about this absurdity. She's like, he's the greatest and he's the person that you would want in every single way as somebody to be president. And I will just point out, then why did you steal the nomination from him? Why isn't he at the top of the ticket? These are the most obvious questions.
What happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him?
It was a bad debate. People have bad debates. He is absolutely.
But that's the reason why you're here, and he's not running for the top of the ticket.
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
What do you think?
So Kamala ends up saying, he had a bad debate. No big deal. Don't worry about it. But that's the reason why she's here. Again, the follow-up question, absolutely crucial. And then Kamala goes very specific and says, well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason. And the reality is that Biden would have stuck around. He was signaling that he was going to stick around.
Let me close with this. I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. Well, I know. Well, I don't. Folks, I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
Until Kamala, the Obamas, the Democratic mega donors, and the Clintons bullied her off the ticket. So we know it's not the only reason. There's another reason, and that's that you guys initiated a coup against him in order to install yourself as the candidate for the Democrats in 2024. And the reason you waited so late to bail out on Biden is because you knew you couldn't win a Democratic primary.
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
What do you think?
I'm running for president of the United States. Joe Biden is not. And my presidency will be about bringing a new generation of leadership to America that is focused on the work that we need to do to invest in the ambitions and aspirations of the American people.
It's a judgment question. That's why I ask. Can the American people trust you in these moments, even when it's maybe uncomfortable for Americans to level with Americans in that way? So that's why I ask. And it sounds like what you're saying is you feel like you never saw anything like that from President Biden.
So Kamala immediately pivots off of that. She tries to avoid it, but this reporter, to her credit, asked the question again, and she says, it's about your judgment. Can the American people trust your judgment when you lied to them for 4 years?
I have worked with Joe Biden, hours and hours and hours over these 4 years, whether it be in the Situation Room or the Oval Office. I speak with not only sincerity, but with a real firsthand account of watching him do this work. I have no reluctance in saying that. No, of course I don't.
So as she's talking about how she's worked with Joe Biden in the Situation Room and all this, just notice that she's nodding her head no. And the reason why is because the Kamala team and the Biden team never liked each other. We talked about this on the channel over and over again, but there is widespread reporting that Joe Biden wanted to pick Elizabeth Warren as his VP, but after the Black Lives Matter riots, he was basically forced by his consultants, by his team, to pick the highest ranking black female, because he had already promised to pick a woman as VP. If you'll remember, he promised a black woman on the Supreme Court, but a woman as VP, not a black woman. So he ended up with Kamala Harris. And again, we're not trying to argue about her being half Indian or any of that. It's just according to what they were looking at, she was the highest ranking person, and Biden still went through the process of examining other candidates 3 times before he ended up with her. So the idea that she was working closely with him and all that, it's not really all that true. She's been a pretty much absentee VP, except for the fact that she comes in to vote in Biden's agenda with the tie in the Senate, which makes her inextricably tied to his agenda, despite the fact that she was incredibly lazy and absentee as her job. Now, of course, I want to know what you guys think about this interview down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the disaster that was this interview for Kamala. Till next time.